disturbing accounts from India of the houses of demonstrators being demolished, even before any judicial process has been followed through. This is really incredible news. What is happening in India?
Well, what you see, what is happening in India, it's just a tip of the iceberg of the scale of the atrocities and cruelties being committed against Muslims in India. And this did not start just yesterday. It has been happening particularly from last 6 years when Prime Minister Modi came into power. And we have to see the bigger picture. Every next day, the houses of the people are being bulldozed just because they are holding a peaceful demonstrations. Every next day, the people on the streets are being lynched just because they are refusing to convert back to Hinduism. And every next day, you will see so much violence being perpetrated against the Muslims everywhere in India. It all started mainly from the only Muslim majority region of Kashmir, which is a disputed region under the Indian occupation. The demographics are being changed. And now, in the rest of the India, I think the situation is not very different. The reason these houses are being demolished, I think part of it is to change the demographics in the Muslim communities where they are in majority. Because this is a part and parcel of a bigger plan to conduct a genocide in India against Muslims. You may recall that the Genocide Watch has already warned the world that the next thing to happen in India is going to be the genocide of the Muslims, because 9 stages have already been completed by India to conduct genocide. You may recall that India, the BJP, its terrorist wing, RSS, it has recruited and armed as many as 6 million people, 6 million volunteers who are going to conduct this genocide. And nobody is looking at what is happening in India, because the world is not interested of any atrocities being committed against Muslims, not only in India, but also elsewhere in other parts of the globe. So the point I'm trying to make is that the Muslim world, which just got alerted at the insulting remarks against Muslim Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, there was a reaction from the Arab countries, because India has its economic interest attached with the Arab countries. After that, we have seen that there was a sense of remorse from the Indian government, but practically nothing has happened. Now, the very question that you raised, I think, let's see, it's a core reason. The man who's in charge of ordering the bulldozing of the houses of the Muslims is the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. It's a province of India, and this man, Jogi, the Chief Minister, is a very extremist. During his election campaigns, during last couple of years ago, he vowed to dig up the graves of the Muslim women in India and rape them. This is how they are going to treat Muslims in India. This is a part and parcel of a bigger plan of India to not only to begin with, they marginalize Muslims, then they persecuted them, now they are bulldozing their houses, and I think and I fear the next thing that is going to happen to conduct genocide, because BJP believes that there is going to be not a big reaction from the Muslim world.
Well, it's a very stark warning that you're giving us there, Javed, and interesting that following the remarks that were made against the Prophet Muhammad just recently, that as you mentioned, the members of the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, particularly the UAE and Saudi Arabia, who we should note are very important trading partners, I believe, of India. They have begun to push back. But I also note that the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, their spokesman said that India respects all religions, so contrary to what your suggestion. That's obviously not being taken too seriously by many, those particular remarks, because of the policies of this Hindu nationalist party. So will the influence of the GCC members be more important at this point, and will they follow through?
Well, the why GCC members have restricted themselves to just reacting when the insult of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was committed. I think the followers of the Prophet, peace be upon him, their faith is at stake in India. That there are atrocities being committed against the Muslims in India for the last 6-7 years. When the BJP government came into power, and Arab countries have become part and parcel silently in this crime, because they are investing in disputed Kashmir region, particularly UAE. It is investing in Kashmir region. Saudi Arabia has been investing in India. So I think the underlying message that the BJP government was getting, that it is okay for the Arab countries if they go ahead with the insult of the Prophet, peace be upon him, also, and they just tested it. And there was a reaction, because obviously whenever it comes to the dignity and honor of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then even the sinful Muslim, he will react. This is a set pattern everywhere in the Muslim countries. I think this was a testing water, but we have to see that there has to be a next step. And next step is that there should be an emergency OIC summit, where it should be decided that there should be an economic blockade of India unless India gets problems in its economy, its economy suffers. I don't think the Muslims can influence India to bring an end to this systematic atrocities. Remember, there are 200 million Muslims in India. It's a big number, but they are scattered. They are scattered in 1.3 billion population. Hindus are 80%. So I think they are exploiting that situation. But again, the day Muslims arm themselves, that means they are going to bomb these RSS terrorists. That means there would be civil war in India. That means the West, which is not poking its nose in India right now because they have their economic interests, only then they will realize what will happen with their investment. The world is not realizing, because Muslim has never been a concern for the Western world.
Well, from two directions, you've given us very severe warnings now. One, on the one hand, the danger of a forthcoming genocide, and on the other hand, civil war perhaps from within the country. But we started our conversation based on the news that the protests that are ongoing at the moment have resulted in people's houses being demolished and pressure being put on the demonstrators. The 200 million Muslims that you referred to in India, if the GCC members aren't putting more pressure on, the battle is in their hands for the time being. Where do you see, realistically, in the coming days and weeks, where do you see these demonstrations progressing to? What's going to happen?
I think before I answer that question, let's see the bigger plan that the BJP government has been pursuing. I mean, they have created all conditions which are required to conduct a genocide of the Muslims. And you may recall that there was an announcement from the RSS terrorist groups that they are going to basically merge the neighboring countries, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, into India, and they will force the population of these countries to revert back to the Hinduism. That is their greater plan. And now in that context, nothing has been done. I don't foresee the Arab countries would come down hard on Indian government. They would influence them to stop these atrocities, because the people who are ruling in India right now, they are extremists of highest order. They are pursuing a bizarre ideology where they want to convert back everybody in India, particularly Muslims and also Christians. A significant number of the Christians have already been converted under duress. Muslims have shown resilience because the kind of the faith that they have, I think that teaches them to show resilience in situations when they are under oppression. Now, as we speak, in India, my understanding is that Muslims are preparing themselves for a greater war in India, and they think this war is going to be imposed upon them. You may recall that just recently, the Indian government has announced that it is going to recruit more people in its army, and that those more people are going to be in hundreds of thousands, which means they are going to bring in RS terrorist groups, terrorist members of the terrorists into the Indian army, through which they believe they can merge the neighboring countries into India, through which they believe they can conduct this genocide. Police has already been compromised, judiciary and the military has already been compromised. So this is a very, very alarming situation, and I foresee that if the situation persists as it exists right now on the ground, that means these people would be forced to migrate into Bangladesh and Pakistan. Pakistan and India both are nuclear-armed states, and there could be, to begin with, a conventional war, and that can lead to a nuclear war. So it's a very, very alarming situation, and unfortunately, nobody is looking at it.
Well, let's hope that your warnings are heard and action is taken. It sounds very important to nip this in the bud. Javed, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and giving us that very full explanation. I hope we can speak again in more peaceful times. Thank you.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.